Hey, Brigid.
Hey, Clint.
So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to count to 3, and we're both going to say our fan cast for old Erich at the same time. Are you ready?
Can't wait.
Okay. We have not practiced this at all. Neither of us have any idea what's going to happen, right?
Correct.
1, 2, 3. Gene Hackman.
Anthony Michael Hall.
Oh. Anthony Michael Hall's a good one.
Gene Hackman is really good, though. Have you seen Runaway Jury?
Yeah, the Runaway Jury kind of, or Mississippi Burning kind of.
Yeah.
Gene Hackman. But old Anthony Michael Hall also I could see, and also has the benefit of looking like Jacob Mundell, who played Erich so well in The Expanse, the television show. He was amazing.
Yeah, he was amazing. Maybe they would just age him up. Or maybe by the time they make it, he'll be the right age.
Who knows? Fingers crossed.
Push the button.
Hello, and welcome to the Mercy of Pods, the world's first and only podcast about the Captives' War series by James S.A. Corey. Except today, we are not discussing the Captives' War. Oh no. Today, we will dive into Auberon, one of the novellas of the Expanse universe. Clint has done a beautiful job recapping it. Clinton?
I'm excited. This is my favorite short piece of fiction of all time. Let's dive in. Auberon. We open with the old man sitting in a shitty dive bar on Zilverstraat Plaza in the capital city of Baradon on the eponymously named planet in the Auberon system. This is the old man's office because at this level he can do business anywhere. He likes this bar because he's cool, and also because of the ceiling fan and the sulfur smells wafting off the bay, and because it reminds him of where he grew up back on Earth. He means Baltimore because the old man is Erich, though we aren't completely sure of that yet as readers. Erich's deformed arm has been replaced by a titanium Winter Soldier arm because he is the absolute coolest motherfucker ever to live.
He's pretty fucking cool.
The old man lights a cigar. It is shortly after the LACONIAN conquest of the Sol system, and the old man is talking to his second about next steps. His second is called Agnet because that is not her real name. She's used to the old man waxing poetic. She humors him as he talks about how it's not a big deal that they're getting a new governor. Happens all the time. Everyone's playing by the rules, and something rolls in to upset the playing field. The old man says things get scrambled for a while, but eventually everyone figures things out. He's talking about the churn, but he doesn't say the word specifically because that would be too much of a giveaway. Erich is doing on Auberon what he did on Earth. He's a crime boss, a loan shark, a drug dealer, and a pimp. Cash rules everything around me, /him, and business is good. He says the real problem in the churn is that when people don't figure out the new rules fast enough. So as long as they don't fall into that trap, they'll be fine. Agnet asks permission to speak, and the old man waves her on. She says this isn't just a new governor. They got fucking conquered, bro. It's a whole new world. Erich grunts dismissively. Nothing new about humans going through the churn. This time is different, she says. Erich then spits on the ground and grunts again.
Everywhere is Baltimore.
We now shift to the point of view of newly minted Governor Biryar and Mona Rittenour on a LACONIAN warship called the Nautis, speeding towards the system that he has been appointed to rule over. There are over 1,300 systems in the Gate network. All of them had planets in the Goldilocks zone. All of them had some form of life, some biochemical answer to evolutionary pressure. But because the answers are so radically different in those systems than they are in the Sol system, the soil in almost every single one of those systems is inhospitable to the crops that grow on Earth. Yeah, that's in all of them but one, Auberon, where Earth vegetation survives and thrives in regular atmosphere. And because of that, Auberon was rich and powerful, the third richest system in the network besides Sol and maybe Baragon. And because it was rich, it was developed. And because it was developed, it was populous. And because it was rich, developed, and populous, it was corrupt. All of this was now the governor's problem.
The natural and criminal ecosystems on Auberon are equally robust. There's a line here, though, that says that a human could eat produce from the other tree of life and still go hungry. And I have a headcanon that the diet industry has taken advantage of that to make zero-calorie food.
Oh my god. They totally would.
Yeah.
I hope Erich is getting a cut of whatever money is getting made. Biryar is in his office on the transport ship, going through flashcards of important Auberonians, practicing his mnemonics. There's Michel Cheval with a face like a spade, who is in charge of agricultural production. And then there's a shot of a man with a weird black mole on his face in the shape of a rabbit playing basketball. He doesn't remember this one and clicks a button to get the name, and it's Augustin Bailcheck. Biryar's wife, Mona, asks him what his mnemonic is for Bailcheck. Biryar explains that the mole looks like a rabbit playing basketball, Bailcheck like ball check in basketball. And here's a quote, because I think this is very important and I am legitimately obsessed with this quotation. Also, traveling is a foul in basketball, and he's in interplanetary transportation. So Bailcheck is in interplanetary transportation. I think about this line all the time, because if you're listening to this and you know hoop, traveling is not a foul, it's a violation. So for folks who don't know, in basketball, if you foul someone, the other team gets free throws, and if you foul enough times, you can be thrown out of the game. Fouling is really, really bad. If you get a violation, however, like traveling is a violation, it's just a turnover. However, apparently on Laconia, traveling is a foul. Now, there are a few possible explanations here. First is that JSAC just doesn't know ball. I'm going to say that's not the case. There are two men in the U.S., basketball is a massively popular sport, and they have editors. Someone I feel like would have caught this. The second is that Biryar just misspoke. Maybe Biryar doesn't know ball. But check ball is something that hoopers say.
That's true.
I think Biryar actually knows ball. So the third and most tantalizing possibility here is that because Laconia is an authoritarian state, the penalties for everything have gone up. Violations are now fouls, and who knows what happens if you commit an actual foul. So, in my mind, I can't help but think, like, does the Laconian James Harden, who travels all the fucking time, does he foul out of every game in the first quarter? And moreover, is the Laconian Draymond Green, is he sent to the pens? We need answers on this, Jim Zacornis. I need to know what is going on with Laconian basketball.
In the next edition, it's going to be changed to violation. I bet you anything.
Oh my god. If they do that to me again, I will absolutely fucking lose it. Anyway, Mona suggests a better mental image. The mole is a spot of tar that got splattered on Augustin's face from his lover's balls when he was giving him a blowjob. Biryar says, well, that's gross. Mona says, yeah, but you'll remember it. And she says, it's easier if you commit to the process. Biryar thinks about how he wasn't surprised that the High Council tabbed him to be the Auberonian governor. Sure, he was a good soldier and a dedicated Laconian. His bona fides were positively Santiago-Singian.
His thesis was on one of Duarte's works, which I think is so funny because the Laconians are in this intellectual silo where the best thing you can do is repeat back the governor or the high consul's own words to him. Like, great job, you did the best thesis. It's about me.
And somehow I'm guessing that he wasn't, like, disagreeing with Duarte's works. He wasn't, like, picking them apart. He was just like,
yeah,
this shit slapped.
I think that the universities on Laconia are probably pretty Bob Jones University-like, where it's like, if you can just say what we say the Bible says, you pass.
Totally. Biryar, the main reason he was asked to be governor was his beloved and perfect wife, Mona, who is the greatest soil scientist in the empire. So she was obviously going to be sent to Auberon. If she can help the locals figure out how to grow earth crops in other systems, they would really be cooking. She would go to Ztamyan, which is the most important university in Auberon, and conduct the most important scientific research in the empire. Does this sound familiar, Tonner fan?
Yeah, it sounds familiar to this big Tonner fan right here.
Hell yeah. Biryar's studies are then interrupted by a call from the security officer accompanying his ship. And folks, it is Major Overstreet, who we are familiar with. We last saw him firing a bullet into Santiago Singh's mostly empty skull. Biryar then goes to meet with Overstreet, well aware of how Overstreet has treated others at his rank. He describes Overstreet as having, quote, stepped in to prevent atrocities in the name of empire, which in my mind is pretty much confirmation of the whole Sing was set up to fail theory that everyone talks about. But he's still a little nervous around Overstreet, saying that when he sat across from Overstreet, his neck felt the shadow of the guillotine.
Rittenour is in danger constantly in this story, not least from his own head of security.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, literally everyone is out to get him.
Yeah.
Except for Mona. That's funny. But Overstreet wants to just talk to him about security when they get planetside in the capital city of Baradon. Which house should they live in? How should they fortify it? Biryar feels weird making these decisions without ever having set foot on the planet. But hey, that's his job. He decides to choose the open floor plan without ostentatious security. The real protection, after all, would be the narrative of power. And power resides where men believe it resides. The men of Auberon would know that power resides with the military might of Laconia and the warship they're traveling on, the Nodus. Peace through strength, baby.
And I like that little eunuch reference you got in there.
Sure, yeah.
I like in this section how easy it is for Overstreet to manipulate Biryar by mentioning Mona's safety. Like, Biryar picks one house and Overstreet's like, well, that's really far from the university. Mona will have to walk all that way.
Yeah.
Biryar is like, oh, we better pick this other one.
Totally true. And I'm sure that Overstreet wanted him to pick the one that he picked, I'm sure. At this point, Biryar is like almost a carbon copy of Santiago Singh. He's a loyal soldier. He's intensely committed to the cause, and also a dedicated wife guy. Him and Mona are newly married, and he is massively horny for her all the time. They don't have kids. They just got married 2 years ago. The text says this, and so it's still that sort of newlywed time frame. And honestly, their relationship is truly wonderful to behold. He is like really nervous about all of this governor stuff. And when she asks him if he's okay, he decides to be honest and say he's not sure. She kisses him, and he gives her the look like, hey, baby, I might want to rail you in that sundress. And she says, calm down, let's do it later, in a very coquettish way.
They're cute.
I love the two of them to pieces. Biryar and Mona Rittenour are officially my favorite fascists.
Cuties.
They are. The Nodus, which is rated for atmosphere, lands on Auberon. Biryar had imagined this moment 1,000 times, stepping out onto his planet as the conquering hero. But when he does, it smells like utter ass. In one of the least subtle metaphors in the history of literature, the entirety of Auberon smells like shit. It is just wafting in the air, and the locals say you get used to it, which I find very funny.
Yes. Also funny is his little mental preparation to be this like heroic, gravely serious, conquering governor. It's so embarrassing.
It is. The other weird thing about Auberon, and I wanted to ask you about this. So the other weird thing about Auberon is that the cycle of the day is much shorter, such that in each 8-hour period there was 4 hours of dark and 4 hours of light. So the days are like two light cycles and one dark cycle, and the night was the reverse. So it was dark at noon and light at midnight. So this feels like it's designed to unsettle folks. Do you have an idea as to what the sort of narrative purpose of this little thing is about Auberon?
No. I think it is probably to unsettle folks, or at least to make it so it's not like just Earth 2, I guess. Like, This place is weird. It's not that easy to get used to. The people who thrive here had to adapt to this. That's what first comes up for me. But I mean, light and dark are definitely big, rich, symbolic territory. So let's try and pay attention to what time of day it is when different things happen. Maybe that's relevant.
Oh, yeah.
Or like what the light's doing.
And all of that makes sense. Absolutely. I wonder if it's like sort of to make things surreal, like almost dreamlike at times. Because like there's, and we'll talk about it, there's some times where they talk about the midnight sun.
Yeah.
The noontime dawn or something like that. And like those are, obviously incongruous types of descriptions. And so it feels like maybe we're supposed to be thinking that this is surreal.
That's totally a good point, because as you pointed out in the notes, Auberon is most likely a reference to Auberon, the King of Fairies from Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yeah.
And that play is the setting is meant to be not where humans usually go, like the Fey realm where where light is dark, up is down, cats and dogs get along.
Mass hysteria. Love that. No, yeah, that's a really great point.
So if we're in the Fey realm now, that would make sense.
Yeah, shit, that makes Erich Puck, right?
Oh, it maybe makes him, he's Puck and Biryar is Auberon.
Maybe that's it.
Just trying to deal with these motherfucking fairies. It's like herded cats.
Sounds like my prom night. So Mona and the governor, they get to their compound and they start settling in. But before they can, on the day they arrive, apparently on the day they arrive, which feels like a weird scheduling thing,
yeah,
they have a state black tie reception at their house with about 100 local dignitaries and guests.
This is just torture. Not the next day?
Give yourself a minute to rest, but they're just jumping right into it. Anyway, Biryar knows some of these people, and some of these people, because he's done his research, but there's other people that he just has no idea. Like, for example, there's a thin woman with an elaborate updo. There's an old man with thinning hair and a metal arm. Who could it be? We may never know. There's also, like, a non-binary twink with the suit and demeanor of a banker, which I enjoy. The suit and demeanor of a banker is, like, lovely imagery, because everybody has this in their mind.
Oh, yeah.
Biryar is having so much fun, he even thinks about how the sewer stench, it might be going down. Pay attention to when he smells shit. He watches Mona press the flesh, and he is once again horny for her and jealous of other people getting her attention. She is so good, and he's so into her. And so he just follows her and catches up with her just as she's being sort of button-hooked by another researcher at the University of Tom Yan.
When he approaches this button-hooking situation, he realizes he's misjudged what the interaction is. He thought he needed to save Mona from Carmichael, but they're kind of having a mutual bitch fest. Not the best at judging situations, this guy. As for that fig tree, they're in this little side garden, and you'd put a note, like, what's going on with this fig tree?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it, and okay, so it has earth grass with Auberon flora pushing through, like, weeds. And grass is what you might call a luxury plant. It needs a lot of maintenance and water and food. It's like, doesn't produce anything of value. It's just for looks, and
that's true.
Really hard to keep alive. So this little patch of land can support this high maintenance earth plant, and it's also very desirable for the local plants. They're trying to live there too. It's like really good dirt. And it's got this fig tree busting it open, laden with ripe fruit. It says the fruit is ripe to the point of splitting, so it's like, couldn't be more ripe. It's about to either ferment or rot. The scent of the sweet fruit is mixing with the sewer stench. So we're seeing this fecundity, fertile soil made of rotting things, and all the riches that come from rotting fertile soil. You can't have the fruit without the underlying rot. And the fruit itself is on the verge of rotting, so you better get it fast.
I mean, fig trees are, like, supposed to be symbolic of wealth, right? Like,
yeah, plenty. Yeah, land of figs and honey, I think, is a thing people say.
Yeah.
Land of milk and honey? I don't know. But yeah, figs are very, like, I don't know how hard they are to keep alive, but they definitely symbolize, like, plenty and
indulgence.
The riches that come from the land, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Very kingly.
Anyway, the researcher that he's talking to is an older lady. Her name is Dr. Carmichael. She is complaining about how her efforts to coax the local biology to grow something that could nourish humans had the funding cut off from it in a very crucial period. I'm assuming this is Ricker's fault. Anyway, this lady is super pissed, and Mona is pissed on her behalf. Mona promises to do something, and then Biryar tries to walk it back and says, hey, we'll look into it. When they're alone, Biryar asks Mona not to commit themselves to anything on the first day. Mona, who is tired too, because again, they just fucking got there, and they have to be on right away.
I can't imagine the jet lag.
Oh my god, yeah. Mona notes that they knew this place was corrupt, and that's why they're here, to fix it. Biryar waves her off, but regrets because he knows that he sounds condescending. He's at least thinking about her feelings, which is nice. The two separate to mingle. The governor is the belle of the ball. He presses the flesh and accomplishes what he needs to accomplish. He thinks about one of Duarte's Duarteisms. Side note, my old boss, Drexel, used to have a list of Drexelisms.
Oh, stop.
And so I think of that. all the time.
He compiled his own list.
Yes, he did. As a matter of fact, he did. I've got them around here somewhere. I wonder if there's any overlap between the Duarteisms. I've got to find them.
You would not be surprised.
Anyway, the Duarteism at issue here is overdoing it is also falling short. Tuck this in your back pocket for later, friends, because I think it will be relevant. Anyway, Biryar finds himself in a side room, but he's got company. The old man with the prosthetic arm stood at the window, looking east toward where the sky was fading from black to charcoal with the coming of the nighttime dawn. It was 10 p.m. Love that. The coming of the nighttime dawn. It's great.
Very good.
Biryar knows that this man was not in his flashcards. He would have remembered the titanium arm. The man is bald up top, with graying hair around his temples in the back, and a pencil-thin mustache. This is why I think of Gene Hackman, because I think he could pull this off.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's wearing black slacks and an open-collared shirt and just chomping on an unlit cigar, and I cannot express to you how much I love this image.
It's really good. It's very gangster.
It is. I imagine, they don't say it, but he's got to have, like, at least one gold chain. At least one.
Yeah, and we know from elsewhere in the story that his chest is hairy.
Yep. And he's just, like, letting it all go. Like, hang out.
This is an old gangster.
Turd of a planet, the old man says to the governor. Everything he says is funny. He says the first time he came here, he thought the smell would make him puke. And that's why he started smoking cigars, because it covered up the shit smell. Governor Rittenour introduces himself, and the old man just ignores it. He says the situation reminds him of the Raj, a couple thousand British soldiers colonizing the entire Indian continent of millions of people. Crazy odds. Nope, the old man doesn't envy the governor. Rittenour says the old man's understanding of history is bad, which it isn't.
No.
And he says maybe, but he also knows some other stories. The old man asks the governor if he's ever heard the phrase silver or lead. Rittenour says no. And by the way, what is your name? The old man says his friends call him Erich, and he grins. Erich goes on and talks about how back in the day there used to be this whole thing in a non-specific place where they used to have this whole recreational drug companies, totally illegal. And when the new sheriff came to town, they'd ask him, silver or lead, plato o plomo. This is, as I understand it, basically the plot of Narcos, by the way, but it means a bribe or a bullet. The governor asks if the old man is threatening him. Erich lies and says, heavens no, we're just two people talking history. And then he takes something from his pocket. It's a credit chip. And he says, hey man, this is totally off the books, with 15,000 new francs in it. He's giving it to the governor as a token of respect. Use it for anything you want, buddy. Go nuts. Just please don't think about the silver or lead thing that I mentioned 30 seconds ago, because I am not, repeat and underlined, not threatening you. Rittenour takes the chip, throws it on the ground, and stomps on it. Erich asks if he's sure about that, and the governor says yes, and don't make me raise my voice. There are a lot of armed people in my house right now. And then Erich smiles and says something so unspeakably cool that I can barely stand it. There are, and some of them probably pretty loyal to you. Others, maybe not so much. Are you a gambling man?
This guy fucks.
He is so good. Oh my god. Are you a gambling man? Anyway, the governor is cowed and says nothing, and the old man slips away. Once Biryar's shaking fits are done, he goes out to find Mona. She knows something is wrong. She asks if they're in danger, and he says he's not sure. Find their guards, not the locals, the ones from the Nodus. Eventually, Overstreet comes in, and Biryar briefs him on the exchange. Overstreet tells him he'll post armed guards from the Nodus overnight, and they'll retreat there in the morning to debrief. And then Overstreet asks the governor how he wants this to be handled. Rittenour, who is very aware that subjecting non-Laconians to Laconian justice was the last mistake the governor's saying ever made, says that if the perpetrator is a Laconian, they will be handled according to military protocol, i.e. interrogated and then executed. But if they are a local, they should be questioned and then referred to the local criminal justice system. Overstreet seems pleased with this, but he says until the old man is found, he'd like the governor to wear a sidearm. The governor hesitates, but reluctantly agrees to carry the Chekhov's gun. When he goes to bed, Biryar promises to Mona, and again, tuck this in your back pocket, I won't let anyone hurt us.
Giving him a gun is so insane. Do you think that you can prevent the Kennedy assassination by giving Kennedy himself a gun? Why would you not just give him a bodyguard?
Yeah, just like at all times.
Yeah,
it's a great question. We shift back, and we are back with the old man in his quasi-bolt hole, and he is running a diagnostic reboot on his robot arm, which is shaking and twitching like crazy. We're in Agnet's POV, and she is salty. She doesn't think Erich should have talked to the governor that way so soon. Erich waves that away. It was a risk, sure, but whatever. Still, Erich talking to the governor that way was the reason they were holed up instead of at the Zilverstraat bar where they normally hang out. And then they get another quote like this: the light of the afternoon dawn slanted in the clerestory windows, tracking down the far wall quickly enough to follow if she was patient. And she wasn't.
Love that.
The old man is pouring ouzo over ice because, again, he's cool as fuck.
That sounds so good.
It does. It really does. The governor's going to fuck us up now, right? Agnet says. Yeah, that's his job, he replies. But we're still on our own pitch. How hard is this going to be, she asks. And then, quote, I don't know. He's a tight ass, this one. I mean, it seems like all these Laconians are. Not a big surprise. You take a bunch of Martian congressional Republican fanatics and interbreed them for a few decades. It's not going to tend towards a greater mental flexibility.
He's so funny.
Yeah. Am I going to clip everything that Erich says verbatim in this whole time? Maybe. It's my podcast. You cannot stop me. He is very, very funny.
He's so good.
Anyway, not to worry, he says. He's got eyes and ears in Rittenour. He'll figure out what he's hungry for, and they're good at that because hungry pays the bills. Agnet says, why don't we just kill this fucker? And Erich says, because I don't get to pick his replacement. The next guy will probably be worse. But Agnet doesn't get it. You've already made the offer, she says. He said no. Now you kill him. Those are the rules. No, says Erich. The rules are what I say they are.
Daddy.
Yes, correct. We are now in Mona's POV as she takes her office at Zitamyan. She meets Veronica Dietz, who I assume is the distant descendant of Queen Goth Lydia Dietz. Veronica is Mona's liaison to all of the various work groups.
Veronica Dietz is the name of 2 different Winona Ryder characters.
Oh, that's a great point. From Heathers, right?
Yeah.
Fabulous. Mona asks Veronica to bring her the research on amino acid array translation, which is something that comes up in the Captives War all the time. This is the thing the drunk lady at the party, Dr. Carmichael, was complaining to her about. Veronica says, hey, that research isn't ready for review. Mona says, doesn't matter, just bring me what you got. She wanted to get to the bottom of this. After all, she couldn't do anything about the threat from the old man, but she could do something about this. When she gets the work, she's initially a little overwhelmed. It's solid but unspectacular. But then she looked at the work that replaced Carmichael, and it was crap. Still, it might not have been a conspiracy. It might have just been a bad decision by the previous regime. But then she kept digging and digging until she found the smoking gun. On this contract and on every other contract with every other work group, Veronica Dietz, Winona Ryder herself, got a cut of any of their discoveries. Each cut was small, but collectively she was swimming in it. There was no justification. It was just graft. And Mona is incensed.
Is Veronica in charge of, what is her position exactly? She's a liaison.
She's a liaison. I'm guessing she's just middle management, but she's just corrupt middle management, right?
Oh, it's interesting that she's got them all under her thumb.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, Governor Rittenour is doing the most important job a Laconian governor can do, which is executing other Laconians. He thinks back to the first execution he ever attended. like he's thinking about the first ball game he ever went to. It's very weird. It was the Laconian soldier who ran over Zan with his cart. So Biryar has been on Laconia since the beginning, essentially.
Wow.
Before he killed the guy, Duarte gave a speech about how life was precious. Later, Biryar realized that the precious nature is why the sacrifice of Laconian justice mattered so much. The second execution was apparently when a Laconian worker had used the wrong proportions in mixing cement on some buildings, and no one was hurt, but they could have been. So Duarte had her executed. Cool guy. Really cool. There's a quote. It says, "Laconia had always been the few and the pure against the many and the corrupt. Like the Spartans from whom they took their name, Laconians were severe within their group, both to forge the iron discipline that led them to victory and to demonstrate to others the sincerity of their beliefs. It was hard, but it was necessary." This is such bullshit. It is absolute garbage from sort of like a realpolitik perspective. But it should also be noted that these dorks worshipped the Spartans, who were ass-backward losers, even by Greek standards.
The Spartans lost, my brothers in Christ.
Yeah.
Their civilization was short-lived.
For a reason.
Yeah, because being Spartan sucked, and
Right.
their weird, shitty attitude didn't make them really that great at war either.
Mm-mm.
This passage is also a load-bearing wall in the structure of the story. It establishes that the only option to punish Laconian errors, not just crimes, but also mistakes, is death. This will be relevant later.
Yeah. This is an insane system. It's legitimately bananas.
If you can think of anywhere on Earth that has this system where slight mistakes and any, like, show of not loyalty, any, like, chink in the loyalty equals execution, it's not a place that you would want to live. They're usually an example of, like, why we should be against communism or whatever. It's like, nobody would want this to take over their planet.
No, of course not. Anyway, Rittenour is presiding over the execution of a Laconian ensign who sold a pharmaceutical printer and reagents to the local underground. They also caught the buyer, who was handed over to the local authorities, and the buyer faced as much as 2 years confinement if convicted.
2 years.
The Laconian soldier would be dead before lunch. Biryar watches the execution and catches a particularly strong whiff of the atmosphere shit smell, and he says it felt like a comment. Yeah, sure was, buddy. After the bullet is fired, the governor turns to the local cameras watching the display, making sure to show them his good side. He's pleased that the locals are shocked. State violence should be shocking.
He says that this was done to prove a point and not to bring justice. The only thing that matters is the enforcement of state power and the fear that such execution would instill. Like, it's not, nobody thinks that this is justice or, like, proportionate. The point is to make people scared.
Yep. It's like black bagging people and throwing them into an El Salvadorian prison.
For tattoos.
Yeah, for tattoos, for example.
Yeah, it's a whole lot like that.
Theoretically. I mean, we're just spitballing here. Anyway.
Let's say people were doing that, it would be like this.
It would be kind of like that. I agree. Biryar sees Suyet Klinger, the representative of the Laconian Congress of Worlds, who offers condolences. And Biryar says, discipline is the policy of the High Council. As he walks away, he even thinks about how unfair it is that this Laconian bastard just got his brains blown out, and the local offender might even go free after trial. But being a Laconian meant being held to a higher standard. Regardless, he needed a drink. On his way, he runs into Deputy Bailcheck, who, because of Mona's blowjob joke, he remembers his name instantly. Bailcheck himself seemed shocked when the governor introduced himself, and Biryar, in a self-congratulatory way, remembers Mona's comment about how it works better if you commit to the process. She was right, of course. The governor gets in the car, and he finds Overstreet sitting across from him. Overstreet asks the governor how he's doing, and he says he has a bit of a headache. Overstreet says that is the stutter, which is the body's response to the weird abbreviated sun cycle that we talked about earlier. Overstreet says it's happening to him, too. And there's this passage where it notes that the car has air conditioning and atmosphere, which is pumped in from the Nautis. And so the car lacks the shit smell. And then Biryar dreaded stepping out of the car and having to be faced with the smell again, which again is not very subtle.
No. He wants to go home.
Yeah.
This isn't the right place for him. His body doesn't like it.
Nope. Rittenour asks Overstreet what progress he has made in the investigation. Overstreet says not much. The man with the metal arm is a known figure in the underground, but he has no record of his arrival, no registration, no accounts on any of the exchange. He must have a hell of a fake identity. Wonder who gave him that. The governor says, keep looking, but when this old man is caught, don't turn him over to the local authorities. He'll be questioned, and then they'll revisit his punishment. After all, he was talking to the governor's wife. And Overstreet seems okay with this, even though that's basically what got Santiago Singh killed. I guess it's just because it's one guy and not a whole station of people.
I guess.
Yeah.
To me, this is Rittenour again bending the rules for his wife.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yes, he will not bend the rules except for Mona. There you go.
Yeah.
On the way home, he sees some locals playing football, and he thinks about how any one of them could be terrorists. Even being on the surface of this planet seems insane to him sometimes. And then when he gets home, he loosens his collar, pours himself a drink. He looks around and he notes that other than a few keepsakes he brought from Laconia, everything else in his house is local, and he fucking hates it. He hates the decor, he hates the vibes. The planet feels like it doesn't want him here.
It doesn't.
Eventually, Mona comes in, and he can tell she's pissed. This whole place is rotten, she says. She tells Biryar everything about Veronica's kickbacks. She wants Biryar to march over and arrest Veronica. He says he'll look into it, and if there's anything there, he'll hand her over to the local authorities. This does not satisfy Mona. She wants action. But Biryar does not want to risk Overstreet's wrath by imposing Laconian discipline on locals like Veronica. And then there's a knock on the door from one of the housekeepers, but he just says to come back later. This is one of those everything is important in a short story. That knock is one of Erich's operatives.
Yeah.
He says to Mona, I am building on fear and hope, fear of the tempest and the typhoon, and the hope that they won't come. Our best path is to be seen as all-powerful but benevolent. Even indulgent. When we have a larger fleet, more experience, loyalty among the local police and military forces, then we can enforce our ways here. Here, we're still in our first days, and I have to be careful not to overreach. This is an interesting part because he's basically saying we don't have the juice to impose Laconian discipline here if we wanted to, right?
Yeah.
So Mona says, but what if Dietz's payments go to someone else, like the man with the metal arm? I hope they are, by the way. They could be working together. Biryar says they'll look into it. She says, you're the most powerful person here, and if you can't do anything about it, what are they even doing here? And he says they're trying to stay alive. At this point, the two of them are full-on fighting. She's saying, don't patronize me, and he's asking her to lower his voice. And then the housekeeper who knocked on the door earlier can absolutely hear them, which is interesting. And so she says, Mona asks, why are you allowing them, meaning the Auberonians, self-rule? The two of them were sent by Duarte to rule over them. And Biryar says self-rule for them, not for us.
These ding-dongs are so Laconia-pilled that they think the locals will be okay with an absolute dictatorship as long as it seems benevolent. And, the locals won't see through the benevolence because they think everyone who isn't Laconian is a rube.
Well, and that's what happens when you have that sort of intellectual siloing that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
They think everybody's going to think like them, but they're not.
They think that the people will, once they just get to know the Laconian rule, they'll love it.
It's the only thing that makes sense, man.
You know what's great is being terrified that your own chief of security is going to murder you. It's my favorite. Very relaxing.
It's the system that our genius founders envisioned.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are back. And Agnet and the old man are in a warehouse, and the old man is obsessively watching and rewatching the public execution. And like a blooper reel, every time the gun fires into that poor bastard's skull, the old man laughs. This guy, he says, pointing at Rittenour, is fucking hilarious. Agnet says he just killed one of his own men to make a point. And Erich says, yeah, you know who does that shit? Theater majors. He's having so much fun. He says killing your own people is easy, it's showy, but he's not impressed. Agnet says she was. Meanwhile, they hear a gate shift and a door open outside. They're waiting for a delivery, and the delivery has apparently arrived. Erich says the execution shouldn't have impressed her. But what's this about the governor fighting with his wife? The housekeeper heard the fight, but couldn't make out everything that they were saying. If the governor and his wife are fighting, maybe he doesn't want money. Maybe he wants some strange. He directs Agnet to set up a honeypot to tempt the governor and says there's a reason why the classics are the classics.
Hell yeah.
The delivery door opens and out walks 4 dudes with guns. Erich sniffs, coughs, and sneezes. One of the men says, bless you. They sit for a while before Erich says, hey, if this is the delivery, maybe you should deliver it? They say, it's the delivery, but the price just went up. Erich says, disappointing. How much? Double, they say. Nope, too greedy. Try again. The guy who said bless you, he doesn't want to try again. Instead, he raises his gun and fires at Erich. But the old man's metal arm moves faster than a speeding bullet, and he full-on fucking catches it in the palm of his hand. This is a Winter Soldier move, right? Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. He's always catching stuff with his arm that he shouldn't be able to.
Unlike Bucky, Erich is in pain when it does this because of the rapid movement of the metal arm, but otherwise Erich is unharmed, and he just sort of drops the bullet with a clank. You boys, says Erich, slowly and with enunciation, just fucked all the way up. And with that trigger phrase, several gun turrets in the rafters above them cut down the 4 gunmen instantly. That was how the old man worked. Misdirection. Agnet had the gun, so everyone thought she was the muscle, but she wasn't. This is the exact setup from when Erich confronted Amos in Nemesis Games, and Erich, of course, imported it onto Auberon. Except this time, we got to see it work, and I love it. I think, I don't know for sure, but I think him sneezing and sniffing was an on and ready switch for the firing mechanism. I'm not sure, but...
That makes sense.
Yeah. Agnet then asks Erich if he's okay, and he says, yeah, but it feels like his arm is going to rip out of the socket when it does that. But Erich isn't done with the lesson. He says if he were a fucking theater major like Rittenour, he would kill Agnet and let these 4 go free. Does that make any sense? No, she says, of course. He says, what Rittenour is doing is grandstanding, and it's immature. If you want to send a message, do it the old-fashioned way. One of the men is sputtering as he bleeds out. Erich reaches down with his metal arm and closes his hand around that man's neck. He uses that man to send a message, presumably by popping his head clean off, the old-fashioned way.
Cue Winter Soldier theme. The old man is a criminal mastermind, as it happens. Overstreet said he wasn't, but actually, he is.
He is. He's so good. Oh my god.
Good.
You boys just fucked all the way up is one of those magic.
Yeah.
It's delicious. Meanwhile, Mona is still stewing on the self-rule for them, but not for us comment, while she's at work some time later. In addition, she has to put up with this asshole Veronica. She hates Veronica, and so she sends her to go get a report that Mona knows isn't ready yet. When Veronica is gone, she takes this opportunity to engage in some self-rule.
Hey-o!
Yeah. After all, it wasn't just Veronica that was corrupt. Either the administration of Zitomyan knew about it and they were complicit, or they didn't and they were incompetent. But she, and she alone, can fix it. She gets to the computer system and connects to the budget department. The man on the other side asks how he can help. Mona gets into her full governor's wife mode. She tells the man she needs to relocate some funds for a LACONIAN project. She asks for access to the Special Projects Fund, and he says, well, there isn't a fund set up for that yet. Well, I guess she'll have to dip into cooperative governmental funds in the meantime, if only this man can give her access to that pot of money. The budget guy is reluctant, but this is Mrs. LACONIAN fucking governor, so eventually he does it. Now, with access to nearly unlimited funds, Mona reallocates money from Veronica's projects to Dr. Carmichael. And then, just for fun, she doubles Dr. Carmichael's budget. Now satisfied that she has righted the wrong, she closes the connection and meets with Veronica, thrilled and looking like the cat that got the canary.
She learns to be corrupt pretty easily. She's going to be fine.
I think so too. She fits in. And indeed, we skip ahead a few weeks later, and Biryar is in fact noticing that Mona seems to be doing much better lately. She's sleeping, she's happy, she's feeling herself, and he thinks that's great. If only he felt the same. He's still not sleeping. He's eating poorly. And despite some significant successes in taking down some low-level corruption, they still haven't located the elusive one-armed man. Overstreet thought that Erich might have hightailed it once he saw how cool and scary the governor was. Sure thing, buddy.
Oh, poor Biryar. He is just not adapting the local ecosystem.
No.
Not at all.
Still, Governor Rittenour had duties. He had to play kingmaker and figurehead. He had to project calm and strength. And he had to talk to the local media. And we meet up with him, and he is mid-interview with Laura Kasten, who is a host for one of the popular news feeds. This is not his first interview with her, and they have developed something of a rapport. It's definitely not his second. It's probably not even his third or fourth. He has been interviewing with her for a while. The governor notes that while she normally dressed conservatively, today Laura is wearing a cleavagey number in Laconian blue. He tries not to check her out as she leans over to put her cup of tea on the table, and she notes that the Nautis is already on its way out of the system, and how that has to feel odd for the governor. After all, your backup is going back to Laconia. The governor very professionally says, no, it's fine. We are safe here, as the system doesn't need a warship. But wasn't it that his ride home, she says? No, Auberon is home now. And he almost believes it. Lara is laying it on super thick, asking curious questions about the governor's personal feelings. He feels like she's really curious about his inner thoughts. Biryar is definitely the kind of person who thinks strippers really like him. He just has no idea what's going on. And then she asks again, what's it like to be so powerful and important? That must be intoxicating. Maybe a little sexy. Biryar awkwardly stammers out something like, I'm very happy to be here. And then Laura makes her move. She turns the recorder off so that he can feel comfortable with things getting off the record. What's this like for you, Biryar? I just want to know. Do you feel alone? Is it hard? I bet it's hard.
Your seductress voice is very, very good.
Is it doing it for you? Is it good? You like it?
Just how I pictured it, yes.
Yes. Eventually, Biryar's Governor Rittenour facade breaks down entirely, and he admits to Lara that he feels overwhelmed. And he says he's like a splinter, and Auberon is festering around him, trying to push him out. This is some very vivid imagery.
It's very gross. Notice the fertility in the form of big reporter naturals being juxtaposed with rot in the festering wound. Just like in the fig tree.
Big reporter naturals. That is definitely going in the episode notes for this one. Anyway, all this splinter talk gets Laura pretty hot and bothered. So she leans in to kiss him. And for a moment, Biryar kisses back. But then he pulls away, composes himself, and says, no. He's about to faint. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy, etc.
Mom's spaghetti and so forth.
This can't happen, he says. We should finish the interview. He has composed himself, sort of. Laura says, well, she's very sorry. And Biryar says, not to worry, there won't be any repercussions. Which is good, because, she's got to be a little bit scared at this point.
Yeah. He's gonna get fucking shot.
Right. I showed you my titties and then you...
You fucking shoot me?
Just fucking shoot me? Jesus Christ. She says, I didn't mean to spook you. And he says, I'm not spooked. And then he wants to follow it up with, I'm married. But instead he says, I'm Laconian. Which is great. That's the thing that comes to his mind. Not Mona. It's that I got this Laconia shit going on.
Yeah.
Anyway, they finish the interview, and Biryar is no longer Biryar. He's back in Governor Rittenour mode. And he's very happy to be on Auberon and is excited to see how it grows into one of the Empire's great centers for art, science, and culture. Yes. I'm just very happy to be here.
In this shit small planet.
Turd of a planet. Now, we skip over, and we are on a yacht with the old man, Agnet, and Laura. Agnet doesn't think Erich likes using the yacht much, but they might be running out of places where they know they won't be observed. Laura's original name was Karkara. She was the honeypot, and she swears she was so close. She had him. The old man says, it's okay. He shouldn't have rushed her. She said it was all set up. They had rapport and jokes, and the governor was into her, but when the moment came, he backed off. She guesses he and his wife have something like a monogamy agreement, and he actually takes it seriously. Maybe it's a Laconian thing. Erich asks Laura what she thought of him, and she pauses for a moment and says that he needs something, but it wasn't what she was selling. Erich says, so is he gay? No. She says maybe 1 in 20 people are actually monogamous, and she thinks he's just really into his wife, which is correct.
Loves that girl.
Erich says he doesn't get it. He doesn't want money. He doesn't want ass. What does he want? Laura says he just wants out of his own skin. Ding, ding, ding. Correct again. Well done, Laura. The old man says he's trying not to literally do that, but maybe they should just fucking kill him.
He's so funny.
Erich snorts and says he forgets how many kinds of hunger there are. And here's a quote. It says, "There was a guy I knew back in Soul System used to say that money was like sex. You thought it would fix everything until you got a lot of it. Because that's what we all reach for. Anything we need, anything we want, anything that's grinding us down, we can get high or rich or laid and make it better. Only, if that were true, people would eventually get enough drugs or money or sex and be happy."
We'd be out of jobs, Agnet said.
But Rittenour, Erich says, this guy lives his whole life in this culture where it's all about, and Laura says, duty.
So, Agnet said, the way a normal person tries to get out of the hole by putting a needle in their arm or fucking a pretty body or working 100 hours a week, he tries to get out by being a good man?
Erich says, yeah, but that doesn't work for him any more than all that other stuff does for the rest of us. And then he directs Agnet to focus on the wife. Look for anything you can use. Laura asks Erich if her debt to him is paid, and Erich says, yeah. Just stay out of his casinos. And then he decants some steaks, and they finish their cruise. I like that part because it's like, Erich doesn't have to let her go, right?
Yeah, he could send a message.
Yeah, exactly. The old-fashioned way. But it doesn't make sense for him to do so.
Yeah.
That would be immature and grandstanding, and he's just not that kind of guy.
I also like how he tells Laura that she's not very good at poker.
Yeah, right. Stay out of my fucking casino. And then Agnet returns to town and devotes her entire efforts to investigating Mona. Even then, it took her days to find it. And then we are back with Biryar, and in an extremely true to form moment, he has confessed to Mona about the kiss from Laura, which is very dumb. You don't have to do that. Mona, because she's an adult, doesn't care. He then kisses her fingers and says thank you.
He's such a perfect husband.
He is. Weeks then go by, and Biryar leaned into being Governor Rittenour, pushing out anything but duty and decorum. The fact that he still wasn't sleeping and the headaches were bad, and sometimes he felt like he had this, quote, weird, oppressive sense of drowning at the bottom of an ocean of air, quote, was nothing to worry about. Which, like, fuck, man. Men will literally become the governor of a fascist planet instead of going to fucking therapy. Jesus Christ. Anyway, all that stuff should go in a few more weeks. Sure. Some time has passed, and the governor is now attending a conference in Carlisle, which is the third largest city on Auberon, and in a different hemisphere entirely. It was raining, and the governor wished the rain smelled minty like it did in Laconia. On Auberon, it smelled like nothing, or shit, one or the other, and he could just not get used to it.
The clouds above Carlisle basically spell out, you don't belong here, dude.
Seriously. Anyway, the rain meant that Biryar had to delay his speech while they found an indoor venue, and so he waits in the mayor's parlor, and then a servant comes in with a tray of coffee. Friends, the servant is the old man.
This part's, so sexy.
You know, Governor, I gotta hand it to your security people. I've been trying to see you for a while now, and they've got your place buttoned up tighter than a horsefly's asshole. Erich smiled. The governor thought, he's come to kill me. Biryar has his gun, but he knows that he isn't a killer. And the old man is. I wondered if I'd see you again, Biryar managed to say. Well, I was worried we'd gotten off on the wrong foot. That's my fault. I can come on a little strong sometime. You want some coffee? The governor says, yes, cream, and then drops his arm to his hip near his gun. Erich says, if you pull that gun, it'll mean we're having the worst possible version of this conversation. Honest to Pete, you wish you hadn't. No sweetener? The governor says no, but he doesn't move his arm any further. The old man says, I take it black myself. The older you get, the more bitter shit suits you. The governor asks Erich if he's there to kill him. No, we're past that. But I am here on business. I have something for you. A peace offering. The governor says he didn't know peace was an option. Quote, I was hoping to have you tried, sentenced, and executed. He's trying so hard to be tough. You gotta hand it to him. Yeah, and the old man, of course, doesn't take the bait. Instead, Erich says, I have a question. Hypothetically, if there was a LACONIAN here who was discovered to be fudging the books, falsifying work orders, making up projects in the governor's name, not one of ours, one of yours, would that be a problem? Biryar says, Erich already knows the answer to that. I know, but I'd still like to hear you say it, says the old man. The governor says misappropriation of funds is larceny at best and treason at worst. It's either a prison sentence or an execution. And Erich says, well, can't you pardon them? The governor says, no pardons on Laconia. No one is above the law. Erich, satisfied his trap has been sprung, says that he understands. And for what it's worth, I am very sorry about this. And then he gives the governor a hand turn. Once the governor reads what's on the terminal, Biryar's heart drops into his stomach. It's Mona. They found the evidence of her fudging the books at Zitamyan. And the storm outside has grown worse, almost matching the chaos in Biryar's head. He asks the old man what he wants from them. Is this blackmail? No, says Erich, lying again. He says, for blackmail, you need an ask. He's just giving it to him. I'm being the good guy here. I love him to absolute pieces.
Oh, he's so good at this.
And then Biryar's horrifying future clicks into place. He'd have to give this information to Overstreet, who would in turn have to arrest Mona. She would be sent back to Laconia for trial and almost certainly shot. And then he'd have to live with knowing he helped cause her death. Or he could hide the evidence, and when Overstreet eventually found out about it, because Overstreet would eventually find out about it, they'd both die together. Because again, every crime that a Laconian commits, you die.
Traveling in basketball, you die.
You die. You fucking die. And sure, dying together would be more romantic, but Biryar still can't bear the thought of Mona dying, and he was caught in a perfect trap. Even if he could kill the old man, there would still be a bullet coming for Mona. No way around it. So Erich stirs the shit a little bit and says, the funny thing is that if Zitamyan found out about this, they'd probably give her a raise, but she's one of yours. So discipline, the governor says. And then, without even thinking about it, Biryar grabs the pistol, raises it to his head, and pulls the trigger. Erich's eyes barely had time to widen. But Erich's mechanical arm moved faster than humanly possible, snatching the gun out of Biryar's hand and crushing it before the mechanism could fire. The old man cried out in pain, clutching his real arm to his chest. What the fuck is wrong with you? He asked Biryar. Biryar begins to sob uncontrollably. I can't lose her, he says.
Big Gomez Adams energy.
He's just all about her.
It's the only thing that matters.
The old man says, okay, I get it. Calm down. And then he tells Biryar the story of his arm. Erich says he didn't lose it in a fight or anything. He was just born that way. He describes it as a skinny little baby arm. He says he mostly just forgot about it and got along just fine. People would ask why you don't get it taken care of, and he just, would never get around to it. And then, about 15 years ago, he got the titanium arm. And it, friends, is fucking badass. It is basically an AI Waldo that's off the network, so it's unhackable. It stops bullets, it bends steel, real Superman shit. It even plays the piano. He can't, but his arm can. Biryar's like, that sounds nice, I guess. Then we get my favorite quote in The Expanse, if not in literature itself these days. And he says, you're young yet. I'm not. There's this thing, when you get older, where you have to make a choice. Everyone does. You have to decide whether you care more about being your best self or your real one. If you're more loyal to who you ought to be or to who you really are. You know what I'm talking about? Biryar nodded. He was weeping. Yeah, the old man said. I thought you might. I'm going to tell you a secret. I've never told anyone this. Not my girlfriends, not my closest allies. No one. You listening to me? Biryar nodded again. I miss my real fucking arm, the old man said. I liked it better when I was me. Biryar sobbed, and it sounded like a cough. I don't want anything from you, Governor, but I would ask you this. Looking at where you are now and the choices you've got, is there anything you maybe want from me? Chills. Love this.
Spectacular.
Biryar says the old man can't make this go away. Overstreet will find them. Erich says, well, maybe. Unless... ... Biryar thinks for a moment. His mind is swimming, and he asks the old man if he could have killed the governor. Erich says, oh yeah, half a dozen times. And as Steph pointed out to us earlier via text, this is Biryar trying to figure out who was more competent and thus dangerous here, whether it was Overstreet or the old man. And given that the old man just told him that Overstreet wasn't really doing his job all that well, he makes the choice that it's the old man who's more dangerous.
Correct.
Erich says the problem with killing you is that I don't get to pick your replacement. The next person they send is probably going to be worse. But, if something were to theoretically happen to Overstreet because he didn't know the lay of the land, well, just saying it might make sense to appoint some locals as his replacement. Folks who knew how things were done around there. Just theoretically. Biryar says, "Can you do it?" The old man says, "Do you want me to do it?" "Yes," says Biryar, barely breathing. The old man is satisfied. He tells Biryar not to feel bad. It's not just you. The same thing is happening on hundreds of worlds right now in various ways. Ideological purity never survives contact with the enemy. He then disappears from the story and the narrative entirely.
So true.
Biryar is alone and wonders briefly whether he should warn Overstreet. Instead, he meets his liaison to go give a speech.
It's not just happening to you, it's happening all over the world, and the pure ideological purity never survives contact, and how the Laconians think of themselves as these pure, the few, the proud, the Laconians, and they're all going to get mucked up and infected with the local culture and corruption. Purity is weakness in nature.
Yeah, and he's absolutely right.
Yeah, he's right about everything he says in this story, actually.
So Mona is at home and is confused and a little scared as to why Veronica Dietz is there at home. She says it's like finding a snake in a pillowcase. She asks Veronica what she's doing there. Veronica says, well, the governor requested her to be there. And at this moment, the governor strides into the parlor. He takes Mona's hand and kisses her fingers. He tells her, "I missed you." Both Veronica and Mona are confused. Mona felt a stab of fear. What is this about? The governor turns to them both. He says it's important that there's coordination between Auberon and Laconia in the sciences. So, in the spirit of that, Veronica here has just gotten a promotion. She's going to be the Auberon science liaison on Laconia, full-time, permanent position. Congratulations. Veronica is stunned. She doesn't want that job at all, but all she can think to say is how will she pay for it? Everything will be taken care of, the governor assures her, because of socialism or whatever. And wouldn't you know it, there's a transport waiting for her right now. The governor gets a text. He ignores it. Better run along, Veronica. Chop, chop. Mona feels a vindictive thrill, and she thinks she sees the ghost of a smile on Biryar's lips.
I love how he gets her a little present. That's so romantic.
It is.
And we knew this was an option because Mona had thought of sending Carmichael to Laconia as an actual promotion, or what she thought of as a promotion. And I love that because this isn't like a Deus Ex Machina thing where, oh, we forgot about this person that we have to send off. Like, we got to put her on a bus somehow. They built in previously that someone would probably be going to Laconia from the science world.
Oh, that's a good point. That's such a great point. I forgot about that. So Veronica leaves, shuffled off to the heart of the Empire on her new and entirely forced gig. Mona asks Biryar if he's okay. Biryar says yes. No, I'm not sure, but I'm smiling more often. He puts his head on her shoulder. It's so cute. And then he says, next time, let me approve it. It's safer that way. The governor's handheld chimes again. He ignores it again. Mona thinks of denying that she knows what Biryar is talking about it, but instead, she says, okay, I will. She sees Biryar's handheld and the emergency band on it. Who's that from? She asks. Overstreet's office, says Biryar. It can wait. What happened? She whispers. Biryar shrugs. I've committed to the process. Biryar's handheld chimes again. Finn.
Such a good ending. He feels physically better because he's letting himself be corrupt.
Yeah.
So his body feels better too.
And you need to do that on Auberon in order to feel like you're fitting in, basically.
Yeah, in order to survive.
In order to survive. That's why Mona started feeling okay once she engaged in a little corruption. It's absolutely.
It's like being inoculated.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to, I've said this before, and this is my favorite short story that I've ever read for a number of different reasons. But just talking about this in the context of the Expanse, from a story perspective, Auberon is unlike a lot of the rest of the Expanse because it's not about redemption. It's not about the beauty of the human experience. And it's not really about the sort of cycle of good and bad that comes with being human that the rest of the Expanse is about. Instead, it's about people who choose to be who they really are. It's about sort of embracing one's own personal humanity first, and then the faults of society second. It's about choosing family over party. It's about being comfortable with failure. And it's about forgiving yourself for your mistakes. And I guess on some level it is about redemption, but it's about redemption in your own mind, not among anybody else. It's about offering forgiveness for yourself, for your own faithlessness. So here's Biryar, and he's doing everything he's ever been told he should do. He's doing it the best he can, and he has this wonderful job on one hand and this wonderful wife on the other. And in order for him to be faithful to one, he cannot be faithful to the other. So Erich offers him a choice, plateau or plomo, a bribe or a bullet. And in the end, Biryar chooses the bribe because it's the only one that he can live with. He doesn't ask Mona or Overstreet or Duarte or anyone else. He makes that choice for his own sake. He chooses to turn to the dark side of society because that's where the lightness and beauty of human experience is for him and his most cherished people. And I think that's beautiful. It's not heroic, it's not selfless, it's not triumphant, but it's the right decision because it's the human one. It's the one that allows people to fuck up and still find mercy.
Yeah. Biryar and Amos have like opposite moral evolutions where Amos learns that it's maybe good to have a moral structure, and Biryar learns that adhering to a moral code or a code of behavior too rigidly can be bad. Like you're going too far without morality and going too far with a rigid morality are both anti-human, I guess.
Absolutely.
And it's like Rittenour decided to put Mona in his heart instead of Duarte.
Yeah. He is choosing family over empire. And he's choosing family over his job too. It's not like he's doing it because of some like political realization that Laconia is a bunch of fucking fascists. He doesn't care about that. It's literally just selfish, but it's human at the same time.
And ultimately, I think it will make him a better governor because he's going to look at other people's situations without the same moral rigidity and rigid adherence to the Laconian policies or whatever. Like he's realized that policy can't cover everything, and sometimes policies were made to be broken because that's how you keep your governorship, your territory functioning well and keep the population able to live is by ignoring some of these policies.
Yeah, not to get too far into political philosophy, but like this is the literal point of Machiavelli's The Prince, is like you cannot be overly severe all the time.
Right.
You can have some what he calls exemplary severity every now and then, sure, but you can't be so rigid that you are hated, because if you are, people are going to rise up and kill you.
Right.
And in order to be a stable state, you need to have a little moral flexibility. That's the point of The Prince.
Yeah.
And so like it's like him kind of coming around to that realization from Biryar's perspective.
That's one thing that's so crazy about Laconia and really every other like return to classicism fascist movement, which why is every fascist movement so obsessed with the past? But like these ideas have been tried and rejected because they suck.
Right.
Overly rigid rule sucks for the people who are being ruled and for the rulers. It's not good. So we tried that and rejected it. Why is Laconia and some other people we could mention trying to go back? Because they're stupid.
Indeed. But you know who's not stupid? Brigid.
Please tell me.
It's Erich.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I talked a little bit last episode or 2 episodes ago, whatever it was, about my affinity for Erich as a character. And I don't want to make this all about me.
What is your podcast?
It is my podcast, so I can if I want to. Anyway, I see myself in him. I was like him when I was a kid, like all anxiety and nerves and being not self-assured in any way, shape, or form. And I'd like to think I'm something like him as an old man. Where Erich and I differ is that he figured himself out before I did. He sort of embraced, as the Keros would call it, his essential nature in place in society a while back. And to a large extent, personally, I feel like I'm just sort of getting there. We're releasing this episode on my birthday in part because the line I highlighted earlier about the choice that we have to make is something that affected me greatly when I first read it. I first read it about 3 years ago or so, and it absolutely floored me. because all my life I've tried to be my best self. I've tried to be the person that I ought to be. I'm a high achieving dorky white dude, and I really, really tried to be great at everything. And it felt upsetting to think that my best self, that great person, wasn't really who I was. But a little over a year ago, I came to terms with the fact that it just wasn't. And like deep down, I was someone different than I had been letting on to a great many people. And the difference wasn't better. I was not better, but it was just more me. And so in the process of me making that choice to be more loyal to the person that I really was, as Erich would put it, I ended up causing a lot of people a lot of emotional pain, or a few people a lot of emotional pain who didn't deserve to be hurt in that way. And I truly regret that. But in the end, I knew that it was a choice that I had to make. I had to be loyal to who I really was. And like Biryar, I guess, it's a choice that, despite all of that, I'm glad I made. And that's not to say that any of these choices that people make when they choose to be loyal to who they really are justified or noble, it doesn't matter. It's just choosing to be who you are. And I can say that making that choice has allowed me to live more authentically. And I credit me reading that passage as like pushing me towards that goal, I guess. So yeah, I guess I know you're listening, James. Thanks for writing this. My life is better for it. And so like other people, maybe not so much. So keep an eye out. I'm not my best self anymore, so I'm blaming you if they come for me. Yeah, like I love that quote so much that I asked Steph to like make a painting of it for my birthday last year. She did. It's wonderful. Maybe I'll post it in the notes or something like that, or on the socials. But it's I just fucking love the, being loyal to your best self or your real one is just like, it's like a real thing that for me, I haven't seen that idea much in literature or philosophy, and it really crystallized a lot of things for me.
Do you feel like it's kind of being okay with people not seeing you as the most righteous person in the room or the most, the best at everything or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so interesting. I really do. I'm so glad we covered this immediately after the churn, because I would not say that I identify with Amos, because that seems a little grandiose. Like I'm a nerdy, anxious little white person. Like I'm pretty soft, but I do relate to him needing to be told what the rules are in life and why you might want to follow them, and how maybe you don't care if other people think you're a piece of shit, but who are you going to be to yourself if you're a piece of shit?
Yeah.
And that's almost the exact opposite of your thing that you experienced, where you're like, you're learning to be okay with other people maybe not seeing all of your actions as perfect. And I'm learning that it's actually other people's opinions also don't matter, but my opinion of myself should matter more.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's two sides of the same coin in a lot of ways. Yeah. Like
I do too.
It's about choosing to be, again, not your best self, but the person that represents you most faithfully.
Yeah, like having internal consistency and internal integrity that you're making the decisions that are right for you. Like, I don't think Erich is saying, like, if you're a homicidal maniac, I guess you're just a homicidal maniac. He's saying more like, if you're holding yourself to a certain standard because of the demands of your position or what other people will think, or just this image you've created for yourself of your purity, you can let go of some of that and the world won't come crumbling.
That's a great point. I'm glad that we covered the churn and Auberon together, because they are, I think, mirror images of each other in a way. It's delightful for me as an Erich stan to be like, he was like this absolute dweeb, like this bundle of nervous energy back then, and now he's the coolest person to ever live in the entire universe. And you get to see that through line. I went back and read the chapter where Amos and Erich meet in Nemesis Games for this, and it's interesting because he's halfway in between both. And not halfway, he's pretty self-assured because he's, a crime boss at that point, and he is able to stand up to Amos. But at the same time, he's still clearly scared of Amos, right? And I feel like the Erich on Auberon would not be scared of Amos. He would just figure out a way to turn Amos into an ally or something that he could use. he's not going to be scared of anyone. But it's interesting to see that character progression.
Super interesting. It's like it gets better.
Yeah.
Like it's really a relief when, like, I've felt as I get older, less anxiety about certain things and less, when you're a teenager, it just feels like everyone is thinking about everything you do. And yep. I feel like Erich is really embodying and showing us how like as you get older, that just drops away quite a bit. And it's like the sense of like seeing Erich as a teenager and then now as this like 60-something is very satisfying, or like makes you feel kind of light or something. Like it's a relief. It's a huge relief.
It is. Even when he has this part about missing his real fucking arm, right?
Yeah.
That he made the choice to like better himself, but it's not that he's saying like, I miss my real fucking arm, so I'm going to tear it off, right? He knows that he's not going to do that, but he's like, I'm not as me as I used to be because of this.
Yeah.
That bothers him, clearly. But at the same time, we don't get his interiority in the story, but it doesn't seem like he's like all freaked out about it. It's just like, well, I miss that. I miss having that.
He's not having like a psychological crisis about it. He's just kind of like, maybe you wouldn't have done that if you could go back and do it again, but that's not a real thing, so.
It's not. So I want to mention this. So last night before we recorded today, Steph just like shot Jacob Mundell, who plays Erich in the story, a DM on Instagram, I guess, just on a lark. And he responded. And first of all, I thought he did an amazing job as Erich. Like he pops off the screen. Good. You can tell when he gets on screen that like he's a classically trained actor. He is like together. And so like he's really, really good. And so Steph asked him like, A, are you aware of how much we love you? Because it's a lot. And he asked Jacob Mundell if he would be interested in reprising the role in the context of having like a robotic arm if they adapt the later books, and also if he read The Churn and Auberon before they filmed. And he said yes, he did read The Churn and Auberon before shooting. He said it was very helpful. I love that he responded. And he said that
me too.
He loves working in sci-fi, but acting work is extremely hard to come by. He says to tell every studio to hire me, and they should. And apparently he also said that he thought Steph was very cool. So I love that. I love that to pieces.
Steph is very cool.
Yeah, I love that to pieces. He's also apparently a queer ally, which is great. Fantastic.
He is totally one of those actors that you see him for like that, just brief scenes, really. And you're like, I want more of that guy. Why isn't he in more things? Yep,
absolutely. So thanks, Jacob. If you're listening,
yeah,
come on the podcast. Let's talk more. Okay. We've talked pretty much quite a bit about themes and symbols in general. Anything else we want to hit before we move on?
I think we're about to get into it, but I just think the whole of the Expanse, especially the last, the LACONIAN narrative, and also the Churn and Auberon are like very instructive in how to fight totalitarianism within your own heart and on the streets. So let's get into it.
Yeah. I like to talk about counterfactuals. We like to talk about counterfactuals on this podcast. And so what would happen if this story, Auberon, doesn't happen? So I just reread Tiamat's Wrath because it's the best sci-fi thing I've ever read. And also Ash was reading it, and so I was jealous. But it finally hit me on this reread how important this whole story was for the greater narrative. So post-Slow Zone incident, Naomi coordinates the whole fucking rebel fleet from Auberon system while she's chilling at Hava Longbow's crib. And the reason she can do that is because the underground is alive and kicking in the Auberon system. If she were anywhere else, she would not have been able to operate and coordinate the fleet so effectively. And the reason the underground is so robust in Auberon is because Erich convinced Biryar to turn to the dark side. And so then, without the rebel fleet degrading Laconia's attack capabilities at the end of Tiamat's Wrath, Laconia, because they're a bunch of dum-dums, almost certainly continued to send bomb ships into the rings to antagonize the Goths. And then the Goths would have been even more pissed off and aggressive than they ended up being. So, to recap, if Agnet doesn't catch Mona fudging the books and provide the evidence to blackmail Biryar into fragging Overstreet so that the old man can continue his petty mafioso activities, humanity as a whole is wiped out by the Elder Goths. That's the sequence of events. So that is my argument as to why Erich is the greatest hero in science fiction.
I buy it 100% because you literally have to have a robust criminal network to fight fascism, because usually in a fascist system, fighting it is illegal.
Yep.
You're going to want those criminal undergrounds nice and robust, which is another reason. Oh my God, I have so much to say about this, obviously, but like, we need privacy. We need places for people to gather.
Yeah.
And we need criminals.
We need our own shitty dive bars at Silverstraw Plaza.
We do. And this is why the Pops, the bar that we used to drink at together all the time, is central to the resistance.
That's right.
How does this relate to the Captives' War, do you think?
Well, I think it does, right? It's the whole blending of trees of life that it's like the key to this story. That's the reason why Auberon is important. And it's the reason why Ajin is important, right?
Yes. I mentioned this before, but I really think that the Carricks went to Ajin specifically to get Tanner's technology, and his work and everything else is a bonus. And that if these two universes were connected, which they're not, but if they were, Ajin would be very important to the Expansiverse or whatever. It would be rich too.
Absolutely. I think that's the connection we have there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this was a lot of fun and cathartic and something I've been wanting to do for a long time.
Happy early birthday.
Yeah. Well, by the time this comes out, it will be, in fact, my birthday. So everybody who's listening should say that, I guess, in their minds. You don't need to say it to me. Anyway, that was fun. Come back next time when we do something else. Have we decided? Are we doing it?
I think we're going to do Drive.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited to learn how Ryan Gosling figures into the Expansiverse.
Solomon Epstein also has a bitchin' jacket.
Just like Rickard and just like Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
Follow us on Buzzsprout or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also send us an email at themercyofpods@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram, Threads, YouTube, Reddit at The Mercy of Pods. Our logo is by Matt Howes, and our music is Push the Button by Sid Luscious and the Pants, available wherever you get your music.
Turd of a plan.
Push the button.